morning to you. What are you and the guys talking about today?
Good morning, Jenna. Good morning, guys. Coming up on Undisputed, did LeBron James send a message to Michael Jordan last night? And is Odell Beckham Jr. worth 2 first-round picks? We'll discuss all of that. Plus, Karan Butler and Mark Schlereth are in studio with us. Undisputed is coming up next. Jenna, back to you guys.
Sounds like a good show. Joy, thank you so much. All right, back to the NFL for us here. Giants co-owner John Mara said on Tuesday that the Giants are, quote, not trying to deal Odell Beckham, but he also said there was no guarantee Odell would be a Giant when the season began. Yesterday, we found out the Giants have reportedly asked for at least 2 first-round picks in return for Odell in any trade. CC, is it starting to look like the Giants don't want to trade Odell at all by asking for 2 first-round picks?
I don't think the Giants have changed their mind as far as trading them. They've been, from the beginning, from season, they said they wanted to sign him to a long-term contract. They would love to have him spend his career with the New York Giants. But given some of the other things that have happened, and given, I'm sure, that there's interest of other people,
right,
I don't think it hurts their case to say that they would want 2 number ones. I wouldn't let him go for a number 1. Nick asked me the other day, would I trade him for a number 1? No, I wouldn't trade him for less than and 2 number 1s or a number 1 and a starting wide receiver is what I prefer. And if I don't have a starting wide receiver, you got someone to rush the quarterback that I can put out there at left defensive end opposite Olivia Vernon, then I will take him also. But that would be the price tag for someone like Odell Beckham. Regardless of what you think, he is that type of player. He demands that type of currency. If I was to get rid of him, I own his rights. I would keep him, sign him to a long-term contract, because I believe that's in the best interest of the Giants and of OBJ.
Here's the thing. I do not believe they will get 2 number 1s for Odell Beckham. I understand that years ago, Keyshawn Johnson went for 2 number 1s. The Bucs ended up winning a Super Bowl with him. The Jets got, they were able to start a rebuild, and that year they ended up somehow having 4 first-round picks. Like, I get that there is some precedent for this, but teams have gotten smarter in, I believe, how they value draft picks, even if at this point they slightly overvalue the draft picks. So I don't think any team will offer 2 number 1s for him. But from the Giants' perspective, think about this. Let's say a team did offer you 2 number 1s. Say San Francisco says we want a number 1 weapon for Jimmy G. We have the 9th pick this year, and whatever our future number 1 is. When it's all said and done, the Giants from that haul got 1 player from those 2 number 1s as good as Odell Beckham, they would be thrilled. Right? Think about that. You're asking for 2 number 1s.
Yeah, any NFL team would be.
Yeah,
I mean, Odell's a special player.
Right.
First-round pick don't mean you're going to get a special player.
Exactly.
You're getting a guy that has some potential.
That's the point that I'm leading to, is that we heard Dave Gettleman, the GM of the Giants, say with the number 2 overall pick, you expect to get a Hall of Fame caliber player. Well, that's what you would be trading away, is a Hall of Fame caliber player. Now, he has a long ways to go, and he could derail it himself. But as far as what he did through his first 3 years, it matches up well compared to all of the Hall of Fame wide receivers. Best first 47 games to start a career ever. So unless you are doing a full and total rebuild in New York, unless you really want to remake the entirety of the franchise, the argument as to if you could get enough value for a 25-year-old best player on your team, I just don't see it. I think they also know no one's going to offer it. And so it's more of a warning shot to Odell. It's letting him know, hey, man, you like playing in New York. You like the stability of this organization. You like the spotlight of this organization. You're not going to like it in Jacksonville. You're not going to like it in a lot of other cities that might be desperate enough to make this type of trade for you.
Cleveland just traded for Jarvis Landry, right?
Yes.
What did they trade for him?
Traded, was it a 3rd-round pick?
A 3rd-round pick. And we don't see a lot of people traded for first-round picks. But someone like Odell Beckham would warrant. I believe if the Giants wanted to trade him, they can get 2 first-round picks for him. I do believe that. I do believe there's a team out there that if he was really on the market to be traded and the Giants were serious about it, they would be able to fetch that price for him.
But you don't think if someone offered them 2 first-round picks at this point, they would go for it? If you think there is a team out there?
No, because you still have to replace him. There's no wide receiver that is going to be a Hall of Famer in this year's draft. There's no one that just sticks out and saying, you know something, if I plug this guy in on my team, there's not that many pass rushers. There is no left tackle.
But you would take a first-rounder and a wide receiver from another team.
If it was
I would prefer, because it helps the transition. The Giants still... The problem with people saying, "Oh, do I trade him? Do I?" Listen, if you take him off your roster, you have to replace that gaping hole with something. There is not that player in the draft, so I need a credible pro who can be my #1 starter in the trade and a draft pick.
CC, who's the #1 wide receiver in this year's draft? Kid from Alabama,
Calvin Ridley.
right?
Calvin Ridley.
How old is he?
He's 23 years old.
How old's Odell Beckham?
25 years old.
You wouldn't have to pay Ridley.
No, there is the...
You get what you pay for.
But you don't know.
Oh, I know.
You know that.
No, I know. No, I know this. Mel Kiper knows this. NFL draft experts will know this.
Good meat.
Good meat, not cheap. Cheap meat, not good.
Listen, the thing, I understand that Odell's a headache, and I understand that video, if there are ramifications along with the video that involve suspension, being placed in the drug program, those are, now we're talking about, to me, you can't just call them distractions. You can't just call them off-field noise. Now it raises to a level where it's real concern because you're taking the player off the field, and he might have subjected himself to that. The way the NFL works, like you get arrested for drugs, you can all of a sudden be put in the program. I don't know what the rule is if you're in a video where it looks like you're around drugs, but that is a real concern. But the whole point of the draft is to hope and pray you can get a player like this. The whole point of the draft is to maybe you get lucky and you get an Odell Beckham Jr. And so the idea that a team, unless, again, they are trying to start from scratch, would move Odell Beckham Jr.
They don't want to. They don't want to. But he can't seem to control himself, and they don't want to deal with it. So, I mean, do you think this is it now? Like, do you think this is the end that we hear from Odell, and now from now until when there is perhaps a contract signed?
I just have a sneaky suspicion. Typically, a kid like that, they venture back into the principal's office a time or two.
I don't think the Giants want to deal with that, but they're going to have to make a decision before the draft if they do make a decision.
What the Giants want to do is win football games. And it's part of the
If the Giants just wanted to win football games, Nick, then this wouldn't even be an issue. Then they would say, hey, he's staying on our team.
Oh, I don't think that's... I think they're...
No, they got a PR. They got a spin it to do right now. The Giants want to do the right thing based on their fan base, too.
Right.
Like, they are not into investing in bad people. Right? That's not the Marr family. That's not the Tisch family.
I don't think anyone thinks Odell's a bad person, right? I think they think he makes bad decisions. No, if we're just saying absent
any behavior, you know, that any behavior would be acceptable to them, I'm telling you, no, that is not the product that they want to put on the field.
All right, let's switch gears here for a second. Last night, LeBron James scored 41 points, 31 more than he needed to tie Michael Jordan's streak of 866 consecutive double-digit scoring games. He also had 10 rebounds, 8 assists. That's not that important now. Cavs beat the Hornets, holding on to third place in the Eastern Conference. All right, Nick, let's talk about it. Does LeBron have to basically do this every night in order to have any shot at winning a title?
Every night in the finals, yes. Like the Cavs, if they're playing Houston or if they're playing Golden State, even if Steph Curry is not out there, given what his roster is, given the lack of playoff experience on his roster for any of their prime players now, aside from Kevin Love, for them to have any chance to compete in the NBA Finals, LeBron is going to have to channel what he's done in the last 3 finals. And this is one of the reasons why I guess I'm one of the few people that will give them more than a puncher's chance in those finals. Because we saw 3 years ago in the finals, when he had no Kevin Love, no Kyrie, averaged, I think, 36, 13, and 9 for the finals. We then saw 2 years ago in the finals the way he closed out the final 3 games with back-to-back 41-point games, then a triple-double in Game 7 for the greatest 3-game stretch in the history of the sport. And then last year's finals, they still got washed, but he became the first player to ever average a triple-double in the finals, and it wasn't a cheap triple-double. It was a 34-point-a-game triple-double in those finals. There is yet to be an instance in LeBron's career where his team's been in the NBA Finals, and they have been able to compete with him being anything short of A triple-plus. Last night was an A triple-plus performance. That is what he will have to do for the bulk of 2 weeks come June for the Cavs to have any shot.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of players that we don't know how they're going to react. The reason why Kevin Love becomes such a buzz for questioning because Kevin Love is the most dependable thing that LeBron James has going into the playoffs. So we can kind of predict how he's going to respond, how he's done under the pressure, how he faces if Cleveland was to make it to the finals. So that part you have to depend on. But these other young players, they're going to have to step up. JR is going to have to step up in the playoffs like he did last night. But even with the performance LeBron had last night, they could still lose in the Eastern Conference Final, and they would definitely still lose in the finals. Like, I believe that they are a decided underdog against anyone coming from the West, which I believe would be Houston or Golden State.
You think there's such an underdog in the finals that for LeBron's legacy-wise, it almost might be better for them to not make it to the finals? Is that fair?
LeBron losing in another final does not help him. It does not help his legacy at all. Like, you can talk all these numbers, triple-double and all that, but if he go, man, that 3-5, 3-6, 3-7, and you chasing after 6-0, like, I'm not math. I ain't real special with them numbers and everything. But if you're trying to be the GOAT, and the GOAT is his cement's dry, it's 6-0.
We gotta go.
And you on the uptick on them losses.
Stay here, Undisputed. It comes up right now. Have a good day, guys.
3-7, not good.